Welcome back. Welcome back. You are listening to Whissel Wednesdays here on AM 1170, The Answer. My name is Kyle Whissel, your host with Whissel Realty. Joined, as always, by Mr. Jason Hall with Team Home Loans. Also got Jessica Macias with Whissel Realty in the studio. Jessica was dropping some great information regarding what you should and should not do when it comes to putting your home on the market and making some of those improvements to it. If you want to connect with Jessica, 619-663-SELL, 619-663-7355. So, Jason, you were at an event a week or two ago, and you've come back fired up, and you've got some information I know you want to share with our listeners. And this information is contrary to what the majority of the media is reporting.
Right.
But that's what we want to give you as a listener of Whissel Wednesdays, is we want to give you the real deal of what's really happening, not what the typical media outlets are reporting. So what's the media saying about mortgages and interest rates right now?
So for the last 7 years, the media has been predicting rates would go up because no one's ever seen rates this low, and they keep popping up, and then they come back down. They even go lower. Then they pop up, and they're like, look, it's going to go up, and then they get lower. And so the media and some economists have been believing rates would go up. They've been wrong for 7 years. I have been for 7 years telling people rates would go down. And at the Mortgage Mastermind event that I go to annually, some of the top mortgage professionals in the United States, we all meet there, and then we break into like literally 3 or 4 of us that kind of just catch up with one another and kind of say, hey, what do you see going? So here's what we see. Based on the charts, based on what's happening with short-term bonds have been creeping up. Long-term bonds, the 10 and 30-year yields, Jess, Paul, and Kyle have been drifting down. When they intersect, every time since the Great Depression, we see a very super low rate in the mortgage market. And that's because the government's pushing rates up short-term with Federal Reserve, thinking they need to raise rates. The market's already predicting another recession coming. Here's what we know for a fact. Recessions always come. It's not if they come, it's when they come.
Right.
It appears there's one on the horizon based on what the market is predicting. When we see that happen and there's more details that come out, like we only had 36,000 new jobs in May. That was a very, very big surprise. We need 250,000 just to keep up with normal, Nixons that are born every day and every month, right? So we really believe rates are going to continue to slide. Now, here's what I would do, whether you work with me or any lender, and here's what we've been doing the last couple of years. When you purchase a house, you should pay close to no closing cost. Why? Because if we think rates might get better, don't invest in that loan. So many people pay $3,000 to $8,000 to try to get a low rate, and 6 months later the rate's there, right? It's lower, and then they refi because they want to save $100. They add another $5,000 or $6,000 on their loan, and then they refi 6 months later. And I keep going, why'd you guys do that? Well, that's what the other person said. Rates are going to go up, 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 up. And they keep talking them into refinancing or making bad stuff. So I'd always advise, if you can work with a lender that will pay all your closing costs, work with them, have them pay all or the majority of your closing costs based on your loan amount and program that might differ different at each place, but get them to pay so that if rates do slide, as they have for the last 7 years, you can take advantage of a refinance, again, at no closing cost. Don't pay the closing cost till we see 2%. Kyle and Jess, I mentioned just you guys a couple weeks ago in our office meeting, we're going to see 2 7/8 30-year fixed conventional mortgages. Okay, we're already at like 3 1/8 on a VA conventional right now. But regular conventional, you're going to see 2 7/8 30-year fixed mortgage at no points. Some people even believe it could get to 2.5. Now, there is going to be some floor. Like my capital markets guy, and he's sharp and smart. He's like, I don't think it get lower than 4. And it got to 3.5. I don't think it get lower than 3.5, and it gets to 3. He's like, Jason, there's a floor because no one's going to lend money free.
Right.
Now, we thought that could never happen, but now let's go overseas. What's happening over in Europe and Greece? They've now going negative interest rates in some of these, countries. Now, what that does is people who have money there, if wealthy people like Kyle, I just tease you, Kyle, but if wealthy people like, say, Trump had their money in Europe, do you think he wants to earn negative interest on that? No, he's going to take those millions of dollars and he's going to shift them to another investment. A lot of that money is coming over into the U.S. They're buying our properties. They're buying our mortgage-backed securities. They're buying our bonds. They're investing into our stock market. That money's flowing, and that's why we actually see rates going down and stock markets going up. Historically, when the stock market goes up, rates go up. When the stock market goes down, rates go down. But because we have so much more money coming across the country, China, Japan in trouble, we're the only country making it, and we're not doing great. This is the first president who's never had a 3% growth year ever in the history of the United States. Okay, now he's got 6 months left to do it. I don't think it's going to happen. And he's invested billions in QE 1, 2, 3, doing things that he felt was the best thing, and I get that, but it hasn't returned 3%. So I really think we're going to see low rates for 3 to 10 years. All right, I really believe that. So if you're listening, if you're looking to buy a house, refi a house, don't worry about the lowest rate, get the lowest closing cost. Can I get that rate, Jason, at 3.5 with no closing costs? That's what you want to ask your lender. Do not get it at 3.25 and pay $7,000, because I'm telling you, rates continue to go down. That's why I'm betting against the market. And guess what? It's been pretty good in my career betting against the media, because the media is not in the real estate mortgage business like all three of us.
I love it. You're listening to Jason Hall here on Whissel Wednesdays. If you want to connect with Jason, you've got mortgage questions, 619-663-SELL, 619-663-7355. And so, Jason, just to make sure if somebody's listening to the show right now to understand this, there's kind of a balancing act that happens here. As rate goes up, closing costs on the loan go down.
Correct.
So conversely, if somebody wants to get lower closing costs, they could take a slightly higher rate to offset the closing costs.
Most lenders will do that. Not all lenders.
Okay.
Right? Because there's a risk. Some lenders don't want to pay the $5,000 because they're afraid you're going to refi in 6 months. And if they're, they only get, say, a couple $100 in interest, but they paid $5,000, they lose. Right? So there's a lot of lenders, Navy Federal, USAA, even B of A's, Chase, they put caps. Like, hey, we'll help you to $2,500. We don't want to risk any more than that. So you want to make sure you have a lender that won't. And I've had the exact same rate as some of those big banks I just mentioned, and they have no credit, and I have a $7,000 credit. Right? But with me, I can slide the rate down. But just in general, you need to make sure you're with somebody who can do the credits and give you honest answers.
I love it. And, when Jason's talking about closing cost, when you go to buy a home, you're going to have closing cost associated with it. Depending on the price point, 2 to 3% of whatever the purchase price is a reasonable expectation to have. And usually about half of that tends to be the loan side of things. Mm-hmm. The other half of that tends to be things like escrow, title, insurance, taxes, stuff like that. So whenever you are going to buy a home, you want to always plan on having about 2 to 3% in addition to your down payment for closing cost. But if you're listening to what Jason's saying, is what you want to do is reduce the closing cost on the loan side of things, which will mean you're going to get a slightly higher interest rate. But based on all of Jason's wisdom and his 222 years in the business and everything that he knows, because he's got his finger on the pulse, rates are going to get even better as we get into the latter part of the year. And that's an opportunity where you can come in and refinance. So instead of throwing a bunch of money down right now on your closing cost for that loan, take the higher rate, and then when the rates get even better, then maybe you take the closing cost at that point and lock that in 30 years, done.
Right. I mean, how many veterans of the three of us helped buy a house with no money down, no mortgage insurance, no closing costs? Because me as the lender at Team Home Loans or Branch Synergy One Lending, we paid all of their closing costs. I mean, we're talking hundreds of clients in the last 5 years I've done that for, and most of the guys at USA and Navy Federal didn't get that. And they call me up and go, well, I didn't get that from my bank. And my buddy just told me that you paid $10,000 of his closing cost. I'm like, yeah, you should have called me. Let's talk about a refi. Let me just show you how to do a no closing cost refi and not add that onto your loan amount like so many other people. A lot of lenders will say no lender fees. Okay. But there's $7,000 in closing costs. Well, but I had no fee because like you just talked about, escrow, title, impounds, interest, all the other items. Try to get it with absolutely no fee is the goal.
I love it. And most lenders probably don't even tell buyers about that. Most of them, they'd rather get the closing cost up front and, get their money and not think about the long term. And that's, what I love about working with you, Jason, is, again, you've done this, longer than most of us have been alive, is that you're in this for the long haul. You're not in it to make the quick buck today. You're looking out for people's best interest and not only what's going to be good for them today, but what's going to be good in 6 months and 6 years from now. When it comes to financing, one of the biggest investments, if not the biggest investment they'll ever make in their entire life. So I love it. Again, if you want to connect with Jason, really get the lowdown on this mortgage game, 619-663-SELL, 619-663-7355. He can give you the inside scoop on what you need to know, making sure that you're building out the right financial plan for your family's future. And again, if you want to connect with Jessica Macias, learn more about the improvements you should be making to your home to get top dollar, If you're thinking about putting your home on the market, Jessica can do an amazing job to help you get that sold and capitalize on the market. 619-663-SELL. Thank you so much for listening to Whissel Wednesdays. We'll be back next Wednesday. Thanks for listening.
Can you blow my whistle, baby, let me